Welcome to the Power of Design podcast. My name is Jack Osa. I'm an architect, born and raised in Colombia, South America. Years ago, I migrated to the United States to follow my dreams, and today I'm the founder and principal of Osa Studio, a multidisciplinary architectural design firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this podcast, we talk about design, business, creativity, and the inspiration we need to create an exciting and powerful built environment.
In this episode of the Power of Design podcast, Adam Hawthorne reflects on his journey from engineering intern to business development leader at a 100% employee-owned construction firm. He shares how genuine relationships, a give-first mindset, and real job site experience shape long-term success. Listen in and discover why there are no shortcuts to meaningful impact.
Adam, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Jack. This is a real pleasure.
Yeah, I know we have seen each other for a while in the industry. And I really haven't had a lot of time to get to know you better, to know about who you are, what you do. So I'm excited to learn about your story.
Well, thank you. The same is true. I've seen your name for a number of years, and we've had the chance to work on a few projects, but looking forward to learning a little bit more about your story as well.
Cool. So if you have listened to any of the episodes, I always start learning about the person, the story, who you are, how did you get to where you are today, so we can, understand you a little bit better.
Sure. Well, I'll start at the beginning.
Sure.
It was a late February. I'm born and raised in Charlotte. I spent my elementary school years at St. Patrick's, so a recovering Catholic myself, and went to Charlotte Catholic High School for my high school years, and formed some strong networks and relationships that I have to this day, both in elementary and in high school. Grew up off of Carmel Road and had the opportunity to be a member at both Carmel and Myers Park growing up. So country club brat, but
yeah, that's not bad.
I had two stepfathers. One was a member at Carmel, one was a member at Myers Park. So strong networks through both of those clubs. Also, just playing sports in Charlotte. You tend to form relationships with a lot of the folks on your sports teams, and it's amazing now living in the city that you grew up in, how many times you run into people. In fact, I was walking home earlier today, and as I passed an intersection near my office, I got a honk from a buddy that was turning, and then my cousin texted me and said, "What are you doing walking down the street?" It's just kind of one of those cool Charlotte things.
Yeah.
But I did leave Charlotte for 5.5 years to get my degree at NC State. 5.5 because that's how long it took me to get my engineering degree. Studied construction engineering, and then kind of the middle of my tenure at NC State, I started an internship with a company called Choate Construction.
What made you decide to go into construction engineering?
Well, I'd say probably the biggest influence on that was having the opportunity to work for one of my best friend's dad's business growing up. He owns property in and around Charlotte and rental properties, so apartments, some 2-4 units, some were 20 plus units. And so in summer times and when we weren't in school, we were renovating apartments, we were painting, we were professional toilet plungers and shower drain cleaners. And, that experience, I've always been technically minded. So appreciating how things work and how things get put together. And while I did work for my buddy's dad, I still am the self-proclaimed employee of the month for my entire tenure there. So my buddy to this day still jokes with me about that. And in fact, we're working together now.
Wow.
Trying to do some more development on some of his properties. So that's been probably the first introduction.
Mm-hmm.
And then my father was in the ready-mix concrete business. So there was a company here in Charlotte called Southern Concrete Materials for a number of years. They had the big yellow trucks. Everybody remembers that. And so Dad would take me to early morning concrete pours and take me to the job sites. And I just got to watch him as he built these relationships with people along the way. And it was fascinating to watch a building coming up from literally the ground up. And so at NC State, they offered a great program. It was called Construction Engineering Management, which was kind of a dual major, but not quite. So you got a structural engineering degree, and then you also had some courses in project management, in construction law, in material science. Of course, you learn the statics and dynamics and all the fun math classes, the theoretical math. But really what it came down to for me, I guess with the opportunity with my current employer, my only employer besides my friend's dad, was I was getting out of school one summer. And my dad said, I said, hey, Pops, I'm coming home for the summer. He said, well, if you're coming home, your butt's getting a job. And so I thought about it for a minute and I said, well, I wonder if Mr. Priester will give me a summer job.
Yeah.
Dave Priester is our now retired CEO and president and current board member and a good family friend of ours. So I spent, growing up, I used to watch his house when he would go out of town and take care of the dogs and go to parties at his house when I was a kid. And so he's always a good family friend. And I called him up and he was ready to give me an opportunity to start as a summer intern. And I had the ability that summer to work on some amazing projects, but more importantly, work for some of the best superintendents. And
Nice.
Through that process, Jack, learning how buildings are built, it really opened my eyes. And I guess that was the point where I realized this is exactly where I want to be.
Cool. That's awesome. That's something I think about a lot now that I have kids. I shared a lot of what I do now that my son, I told you he's 17, and he's looking for opportunities. I'm thinking the best way is just to get him exposure to those things, because you don't know just looking at a book or I don't know TV or a movie. You need to be there with the people doing the work to really understand it and then see if that's what you like.
What internships or what opportunities has he had so far?
So he had done one in commercial real estate.
Okay.
But now I want him to go do the tour in commercial real estate, architecture, construction, engineering, furniture, at least, my world, so he can go see what he likes.
Well, when he's ready to get into construction, let me know.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
That's great. But yeah, it kind of started out for me as an internship. And, coming back for the summers, coming back for Christmas breaks, it was always getting to see how far the building had progressed and getting to learn how things get done. I quickly realized that as far as my education was concerned, it was more of a receipt that would show that I was capable of being taught.
Yeah.
And that the practical application of my engineering degree was not necessarily going to be applied to my day-to-day. Now, I'll say that having that engineering background has been extremely helpful when you think about the methodology of construction. we were in a classroom of 6th and 7th graders at a CMS school doing a bridge building project where we're talking about, how forces are applied across a span and how different members are in compression and tension and trying to simplify that. I think, part of what my education at State gave me was the ability to speak to that in such a way that, some people in our industry don't have that opportunity. So I'm very grateful for that. And it was a wonderful education. And, back to the relationship side of things, even to this day, I stay in touch with a lot of folks that are in that industry. And in fact, we're peers now, and we communicate on certain opportunities or projects or whatever it may be. And they may have moved into the subcontract world or the development world or the construction world. And so, as I think back to both the Charlotte history, the NC State history, and now back into the Charlotte history, it all points to what we were just talking about earlier, in that you're going to make relationships along the way.
Yeah.
And, for your 17-year-old, I know that you would encourage that aspect of his growth is probably the most fundamental part of what will shape the person that he's to become.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when I see him with his friends, and I always tell him, I have friends that I met when I was 12 years old, and I still talk to them. And along the way, as you grow up, you can keep developing meaningful relationships that they stay forever with you, and they make a big difference in your life.
Now, you're from Colombia.
Yeah.
And so I guess, how did that translate into your moving to the States? And I'm assuming that had to be pretty much a blank slate.
Yeah. You have to start over.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to start over.
Well, how old were you?
21.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you just start over. I have my best friends. I have a circle of probably 6 to 8 friends that I grew up with. They live, some of them live in Colombia, New York, Miami, Costa Rica, but we stay in touch. One of those relationships that you haven't talked in a year and you see each other and it's like it was yesterday. Yeah, it's really cool. And here it's been the new ones, which it has been mainly around, my work.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a first generation immigrant, not knowing a lot of people, well, I go to work and, I didn't have a big social circle, but during work, relationships, networking, you start meeting people, you start aligning yourself with that people that think the way you do or you like being around them. And I started doing that. So that's one of the things that I remember people always talking, oh yeah, business is all about relationships. And now that I'm in business and I've been here for 20 years, I realize, oh my gosh, yes, it is all about relationships.
And I think about that both with going back to the sports teams, encouraging my son and my daughter, who's now 28. She is actually working for Train Mechanical here in town on the technical sales side. And all through her high school, it was we always encouraged her to play a sport, just play on a team somewhere. And she went off to school at the University of Michigan. And while she did create some amazing relationships in Michigan, I feel like she has been anchored mostly in her Charlotte relationships, in who she went to high school with and the teams that she played on and her close network of friends. And, I feel like that's the kind of thing, especially when you speaking from the perspective of someone who only knows living in the town that they grew up in, has been hugely beneficial. It's a crazy thing to just go to the grocery store and then you run into somebody that you haven't seen in 5 years and have a 15-minute conversation with them, and it's wild. You never know where not only a business opportunity, but a different relationship might lead you. From any number of things. So it's kind of a unique situation. Everybody always, calls it the unicorn, but there's more of us than you think in
Yes.
Charlotte. And you mentioned something about social circle that I'd like to circle back with you on at some point in this conversation, because I do feel like there's, as men in particular, we form relationships, we form social circles traditionally based on our high school relationships and our work relationships. But I have found an avenue that, may have some benefit to you down the road for as far as building a strong network of social relationships. So we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. That I now value that, those relationships more than ever, because it makes me a better person, when you're with people that are pushing you and that are aligned with what you do. It really helps you to rethink yourself, and motivate you. And also there are a lot of good things, business relationships, translate to the how healthy the business is.
Well, you know how it is. People do business with people that they like.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. Now, it's not always going to be that way, and there's going to be challenges, but ultimately, if you have a relationship with somebody and you can pick up the phone and deliver good news, deliver bad news, and then at the end of the day, walk on up to Moosehead and grab a cold beer. I mean, that to me is the epitome of success.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it feels, if I feel a big sense of responsibility when somebody that I know, they may have a project, say, here is the project. No, I don't have to compete. Here it is. Do it. I'll do anything to make my friend look good in front of their client. I don't want somebody to say, I gave this recommendation and I dropped the ball. Like that to me is horrible. I will avoid that at any cost. And there's a big sense of responsibility to really honor that trust that they're placing in you.
Do you find that most of your opportunities come through known relationships, or do you have do you do a lot of marketing?
No, I call it business development. I'm out there meeting people, having conversations, coffee, lunch, drinks, with a circle. And sometimes I make the circle bigger when I meet new people that I feel that I'm aligned. I just keep communicating. My strategy is, I always say, life gives to the giver and takes from the taker. And in business development, my strategy is I try to give first. Add value, add value, add value, add value, one way or the other. And somehow that value comes back to me. I don't need to know or understand how. You just put it out there. And I have always thought about like creating like a business development class or something, because I see so many people selling, because we're all selling, and some people sell in a way that is not the best way. They want to take immediately, and that's the default setting. But it doesn't have to be that way. I always tell business development people, never reach out to anybody unless you have something meaningful to give.
Now, you pretty much just summarized a great book that I've read a number of times, that was actually given to me by my sister and by an industry friend named Mike Yosway with Carolina Built. It's called The Go-Giver.
Okay.
And I would recommend you and your listeners pick it up. It's a quick read, but that's exactly the concept of this book. It's about giving first with no expectation.
Right.
And, fundamentally, you and I have the same number of minutes in a day, and time is probably the greatest gift that we can give anybody. I say time, and then next to that in our business is information. Information for me is my currency. So I try to be effective in sharing information when possible with clients, with trade partners, with designers, because ultimately, I think that if we can trade in that space and I can give to you my knowledge. Being in the business development world now for about 4 years with Choate, I've learned a lot about how this business development world works.
Yep.
Or I'd like to think I have. I don't know. It's to me, it was always a very ethereal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't really grasp it. And our vice president of business development is a guy named Scott Harris, who is retiring at the end of this year. And he was in large part the motivation for me to even consider this. Very well-connected, genuine, involved person in the community. One of the guys that when you're around, everybody appreciates hearing his jovial side of things.
Yeah.
And he's taught me a lot about the way that the business development world works. And you talk about a relationship builder. I mean, that guy has so much relationship capital that, he is a true go-giver.
Nice.
He has been in our Charlotte office for, I think, 18 years. Came to us through a completely different industry, and much like me, was hired by Dave Priester kind of at the drop of a hat. Dave's one of those guys that will, when he meets somebody that he wants to bring on, he's going to bring them on and then find a spot for them. And so a majority of our office was built under that mindset of finding good people.
Yes.
Find good people first.
Yes.
And then the work, as long as they are humble in what they do and they are focused in getting an end result, give them the latitude, and you'll find good success and good opportunities. But you got to start with good people. Right. And Dave is still always, I'd say, the best at that.
That's awesome. You asked me before we started the podcast about why I started the podcast, but going back full circle to the conversation of value, that's my way to add value. So I'm talking to you, which I'm adding value to the audience that listening to a conversation they want to listen to, because they voluntarily to listen. So they're getting information, they're getting ideas, and to you, I'm giving you attention, which is something is very scarce, especially today, with technology, that distraction is everything. So attention is something that we all want attention. Every human being wants attention and wants to be heard and listen. And now you have the opportunity for others to listen to your story. So I'm putting those things out there. And that's what I use the podcast for.
Which is for you, a mechanism of giving back, or of giving, because you're sharing that out with the world, and I don't think there's anything overly dramatic on my story, but at the end of the day, I love listening to different stories of people and how they came up. I texted you on the way over here as I was listening to your podcast with my buddy Austin.
Yeah.
And, there was little things about his story that I never knew. And, I think that's part of the beauty of having a one-on-one with somebody is, we are having the opportunity to learn in a lot greater detail about each other's upbringing and what drives us. And truly, when you mentioned, having coffees and the business development side and not selling, I've never been, my mother is an amazing saleswoman.
Yes.
I never really had the opportunity to witness that in person. She worked for a local news channel, WBTV. She worked for Raycom Sports, Jefferson Pilot, and had her own company, and is an absolute amazing storyteller. But she, in my opinion, was never the type of salesperson that would force a sale. People are endeared with her because of the interesting things that she brings into your life.
Yeah.
Even to this day, she's out traveling the world. She's got a great blog. Quick plug for Abroad, Traveling Abroad.
Nice.
Pamela Hawthorne. And she tells stories, and people are witnessing her traveling the world and experiencing that as a female. Dad goes on trips when the flight time is less than 6 hours, but but yeah, that the whole concept of sales versus, this isn't transactional.
Right.
Probably 85% of our business in Choate Construction comes through repeat relationships. And to me, that speaks volumes to the company that we are.
Yeah.
Because as we were also talking earlier, Charlotte's a big little town. And if we operate at a high level of building buildings first, which is ultimately how we all feed our families, is by building good buildings.
Yeah.
Then the other parts of that, the relationship side, that's just you being you, and that's just you being genuinely interested in learning about somebody. So I think that the kind of going back to the concept that you brought up earlier about business development and marketing, where you are that person, you're a very genuine person. You're a very genuine guy. And, one thing I didn't realize is, you consider yourself an introvert.
Yeah.
And I find that hard to believe.
Yes.
This is probably when you started, this probably was a very uncomfortable thing.
Oh, sure.
But you still took that risk.
Yeah. I say podcasting, even if nobody ever listened to any of the episodes, my communication style had been growing exponentially since episode 1 to today 106. I'm a completely different person. Because imagine talking to 106 people that are smart, that they're in your industry. You learn about their story. It's very interesting. Like I just gain a lot of value just for me. And then I need to interact with the person. So at the beginning, probably my first 10, 20 episodes were very scripted. So I had a page here, and I would have sent you the questions in advance because I wanted to make sure you hit all the points. But then the more I continue podcasting, I started realizing, I'm disconnected because you're answering and I'm looking at the clock and I don't want to miss. I'm not connected to the person. So the more and more I do it, now I just zero prepare. That's what I learned. Zero. Just be there with the person and talk about whatever comes up and keeps going. That's it.
Do you find that through these 106 different interviews that you mentioned your communication style has changed and your ability to communicate has changed? Do you find that you're more extroverted, or do you find that because of the podcast you force that out of yourself and it just comes naturally now?
I wouldn't say extroverted. I feel the same, but I feel more connected with the person.
So then like connecting with the person. So in my day-to-day, coffees, lunches, dinners, those tend to be kind of the primary means of having a connection with somebody. Now there's a different feel when there's a microphone in front of you, and there's a you know that this is being recorded in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Do you find that can be kind of a barrier to letting somebody open up, or is it just the opposite?
With shorter meetings?
No, with the informality of breaking bread with somebody.
Yeah, I think with the informality, it's more difficult because of the time. One thing, those meetings tend to be, a coffee could be 30 minutes, lunch might be 1 hour, maybe 90 minutes. I find that if you're having drinks, it's easier because people are more relaxed. Sometimes, morning or noon, it's more, everybody needs to go somewhere. So your mind is already thinking about something else. So it's more difficult, but it's not impossible.
I kind of find that the coffees, for me, like a coffee meeting to me is one of the best times, simply because, it's the start of your day. You're engaging with somebody. I listened to a speaker at NCEDA who was with Google, and she wrote a book. I forget the name of it, but basically she talked about that people have different windows of productivity. And I don't know, are you a night owl or a morning person?
Morning.
Okay. So as a morning person, similarly, like when I get up, I'm ready to go. Like, let's go, let's tackle this. That window, that productivity time for me is to probably right after lunch. And then after lunch, I start kind of trailing off and I lose focus quickly. And so I try to have my meetings either in breakfast or lunch simply for that reason, because dinners for me or that afternoon time, I try to really focus on getting home. Now in a business development role, I was just saying the other day, like I may put on 3 name tags in a day at 3 different events. And that can be very trying. I mean, the difficulty in walking into a room of people that you don't know and starting a conversation, that can be a pretty stressful situation. However, what I've experienced, and probably what you've experienced through this process, is people are just people. And at some point, we all have similar struggles. We're all dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, just genuinely making a connection with somebody can go a long way. And you may discover something in that person's mindset that is their ultimate driver that can help you either down the road with a relationship or help them with something that they're dealing with. So my wife likes to give me a hard time about the fact that she says I can carry on a conversation with anybody.
Yes.
And while I don't disagree with that, I think it's less about, just trying to carry on a conversation and more about trying to figure out what makes people tick. Because at the end of the day, I mean, all we have in this world is our relationships. That is truly it, ashes to ashes.
Yeah, so. 100%.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
Tell me more about your role today, and tell me about the company. What are your clients? What are the type of work you guys do?
Sure. So the role today for me is in our business development team, and I'm one of now 3 in our office that has that title. And as I mentioned, starting out as an intern with Choate, I had the opportunity to work for some amazing superintendents. And when I graduated, I started full time as at the time we didn't really have the label, but call it project engineer, assistant superintendent. And it was amazing they always say in the construction business that your first job is the best job because you don't have any idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And, that still holds true for me. I had the opportunity to work with an amazing superintendent and Scott Cunningham on a project up in Winston-Salem, a corporate headquarters job. And looking back, I realized that it was a very difficult job from a lot of different reasons, between weather impacts and working next to an occupied campus and building a corporate headquarters. But in the moment, I was having the absolute best time of my life.
Nice.
I grew into the responsibility of an assistant superintendent on the skin. And I got to learn from a couple of guys who are in the welding business about installing a brick lintel all around the exterior of this building, and how important it was for that lintel, when we started on one side, to finish up at the same elevation on the other side. And this was basically bands of brick. I also formed an amazing relationship with our mason on that project, and to this day still revere that man and that company. And we have still had the opportunity to work with them. So I think back to that, my time, I spent 10 years in the field as a superintendent and assistant superintendent. And for me, that was the most important and most valuable time that I ever spent in this business. First of all, you're solving problems nonstop. I mean, your problem window as a superintendent is very small. You have got to keep that job moving. You've got to make a decision. And sometimes it's right and sometimes it's wrong. But as long as you're deciding things and keeping the project flowing and moving, you're going to be successful. And ultimately, having the ability to build buildings as a young superintendent was one of the most fulfilling parts of my career, because I had the opportunity to learn from some amazing tradespeople and learning the different methodologies on how they build buildings really shaped the way that I approached projects from a project management perspective. So after I moved out of being a superintendent and moved into an assistant PM role, I hit the road. And I was newly married, started traveling on a few projects. We were building for a client called Niagara Bottling, and it was our second, third, and fourth projects for them. We completed Mooresville first, and that was an amazing experience. So as an assistant PM, we would travel to Missouri City, Texas, just outside of Columbus, Ohio, and then just outside of Denver, Colorado. And primarily we were in Texas and Colorado, but getting insight into how things are built across the country was mind-blowing. Because, thinking about here in Carolinas, we've got Carolina clay, and we've got a very unique soil type that I never even realized how unique it was. But then you go to Texas and you have basically a belled caisson structural support, because you're in a very soft alluvial site. You've got what we call here bull tallow everywhere. It's not a very supportive soil type. So we had to build differently. And then going to Colorado in the same week, we would be literally flipping the dirt on the pad, adding water to it because it was so dry, and then flipping it back. And just learning the different sequencings. I mean, that was an amazing part of learning how to build buildings. But getting back to the point, it was still about solving problems. The problem window as a project manager grows a little bit. So in lieu of it being a 15-minute to 31-hour problem as a superintendent, it's now a 4-hour problem or a 2-week problem, as a PM. But it's still the same thing. You're solving problems. And having the opportunity to join our business development team, I credit that to Dave as well, because he has always, Dave and John Dudas both have always given me opportunities to wear different hats. And ultimately, the job of business development is exactly the same as it was as a superintendent, except for the fact that the problems take longer to solve.
Right.
So the goal is to still provide a quality product to our end user, but the problem that we're trying to solve initially can take years. So that problem cycle has grown into a longer duration. But at the end of the day, it's still the same fundamental result. Providing a knowledge, experience to be able to solve a problem, and also having the ability to rely on amazing partners throughout this industry, and being able to call them up, 5 and 10, and in the case of that mason, 23 years later, and still be able to ask for some help, or to reach out about the potential opportunity to build a building together. I mean, that to me is such a powerful thing, and I'm proud to be able to represent a company that has allowed its people, including myself, to be able to do that. Now, getting back to the who we are question, one of the fundamental things about Choate Construction is that we became a 100% employee-owned company 8 years ago, and that has changed the trajectory for all of our employees, all of our employee owners, rather. And I'll tell a quick story. One of my first foremen, a guy named Rudy Madrid, came to me back when we were building Midtown. I was a superintendent on the parking deck, which I didn't design it, so don't come at me with that. We just built it. That parking deck's a little rough. But we met on that job site, and he became my foreman and a close friend. I fell in love with his family. He had a daughter when we were actually, I think it was in maybe soon after 2008. We had been shipped out of town. We were building the parking deck in Spartanburg and living in the same hotel room. And, he became a brother. And he was here via TPS status. So he is Honduran and came here under the TPS, the hurricane of 1999. And so along the way, we worked on different methods to try and get his status to a citizenship, and it never worked out. And unfortunately, he just had to head back to Honduras with his family about 3 weeks ago. They made it safely with 4 box trucks full of tools and supplies, and he had the ability to go back to Honduras and ultimately build his dream ranch because of us becoming an employee-owned company. He retired and was, an ESOP is traditionally a retirement benefit. When he retired, he was able to utilize that money to be able to go back home and start a new life. And
that's amazing.
Think about what that's doing for his family and his children.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
And so fundamentally, the decision for Choate Construction, and I'll give a lot of credit to Dave on that, to make us an ESOP, 100% ESOP, has been crucial to not changing who we are.
Yes.
And that's the point. Not changing the company that Millard created back in 1989 and that Dave created in Charlotte and the Carolinas in 1993. Fundamentally not changing who we are. And, I touched on a little bit having the ability to work for some amazing superintendents and learn the art of building a truly well-built building. I think that comes from that old school family mindset that Dave started with people. Mm-hmm. He saw a superintendent or he saw a PM and he said, that guy's good, come work for us. So that's kind of the story, and it's a critical part of who we are now as a company, being employee-owned, because we all have stake in it. And our collective success, our individual successes in Charlotte become our collective success across our 7 offices. Growth is a huge part of our strategy. We are primarily a Southeastern United States general contractor, but we will travel for the right client. As far as Charlotte's concerned, we kind of cut our teeth in this market in the automotive space and had the opportunity to build a lot of car dealerships. And I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but car dealerships are an amazing, amazing proving ground of buildings, people, and trades. Mm-hmm. In a car dealership, you basically have 5 unique spaces from your parking lot, which is a showroom, your actual showroom, which is high end, unique. Your front office, Class A, your back of house office, which is, F&I, Class B, your parts and delivery department, which is, traditionally like almost like a lot of moving parts, a lot of deliveries, a lot of counter access, some unique construction characteristics. And then you have your service bay, which the service center is the absolute crown gem of any dealership, because that is the money-making spot. And so we have had a lot of experience in the automotive space, and that blossomed through one of our amazing superintendents into an opportunity in the motorsports world. And we have had the blessing of being able to build some amazing race shops and also race facilities. We've done a lot of work out at Charlotte Motor Speedway and just finished a renovation in Wilkesboro. But that's a very unique world. And I'd say that there is a different set of challenges when you're working with a group. It's much like, any project that has a deadline, except when you're working for Charlotte Motor Speedway, you don't miss a deadline.
Yeah.
And so we've grown from that, but industrial and manufacturing probably for the last 10 years has been a huge part of our business. And that type of work, depending on if it's a spec industrial or build to suit, has its own set of unique challenges. Typically, it's speed. There is, there's a quickness to it that's required, and you run the risk always with speed of losing quality or safety.
Yeah.
And we have been hyper focused. Actually, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary for what's called our One Life program within Choate, but it's really more of a mindset, a mantra. And I'll dig into that briefly. But One Life is at its core answering the question of why we work safe. And we started off with a focus on, even with our logo, it's a family. It's a father, a wife, and a child, kind of all superimposed over each other. And so we try to set the tone, when a subcontractor or an inspector or a design team walks on our job site, of why we want you to be safe. Because ultimately, we all got to get home and feed our families, and we're all working so that, we can spend time with our family. I mean, at the end of the day, if you and I had, boundless, unlimited money, we probably wouldn't be sitting here in front of each other. It's truly, it's part of the focus of what we do every day is do not ever lose sight of the fact that no building, no schedule is worth you risking a finger, a hand, an eye, or your life, most importantly. And that's a big part of our company culture. But back to the product types, we're wrapping up the Commonwealth project. That's a large mixed use project in Plaza Midwood that's got a great mix of apartments, a retail-focused environment. Crosland and Nuveen did an amazing job on the development side of really making it a neighborhood focus. Those are the types of projects that we love being a part of, because it's a community builder. We do a ton of healthcare. Healthcare has been a strong market for us. Now, we are more than happy to stay out of grandma's operating room. Medical office building has been ambulatory surgery centers, 23.5-hour care facilities. Those have been a primary focus. Hospital work is a different set of challenges, and you really need to build the right team before you dig into that type of work. So we're focused right now on the medical office building side of that space. Corporate office, while it's been somewhat stagnant, is getting ready to make a roaring comeback. Yeah, we've seen it already. There's going to be an extreme lack in the market of available office space here. Actually, I think it's now. I think we're there. But we've got a great track record of that kind of work. Now, oftentimes as a company, the first thing I hear whenever I tell anybody I work for Choate is, "Oh man, I see your signs everywhere."
Yeah.
There's something about that brand recognition that is very strong. But the second thing that I hear is, "I got this little project is probably, too little for you."
Right.
And, I try to remind people that it's not about the size of the project. It's about our capacity to be able to engage in a project first and foremost. And then even more important than that is the relationship. Because as we talked about, repeat work is such a huge part of what we do. So, that example, we just finished a couple of coffee shops for a dear friend, a salon space for another good friend. And, those are the types of projects that really have a different feel, because to your earlier point about working for your friends, like it's personal.
Yeah.
And
Because of what happened at that coffee shop?
With
Who made at that coffee shop
the coffee shop that
you worked on?
Oh, okay. Good point. Yeah, I forgot I told you about that. That's right.
No, you didn't tell me.
I didn't?
No.
So how did you know that?
I know.
Okay.
You didn't tell me.
So one of those coffee shops is at the Dowd YMCA.
Uh-huh.
And we had the ability to go in there thanks to a good friend who works for or co-owns a company called the Giddy Goat. We had the opportunity to go in there with the YMCA and build out their space. It was a community space that in years past was a very common meeting place. And the story I think you're referencing is my mom and dad met at that YMCA.
Wow.
Almost 30 years ago, maybe more than that. Yeah. And 29 years ago. Anyway, it was kind of fortuitous to be able to go back in there and recreate a community space with my good friend and be able to bring that space to life with an amazing team. Our superintendent and project manager absolutely did such an amazing job in that space. In fact, on the way over here, I got a text message from one of the guys over there saying, "Hey, this guy just came in and said this space is amazing. He wants to talk to you about another project."
Wow.
That's the kind of thing that really makes you feel good about building buildings. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that, in your line of work, you have a sense of pride that comes from doing the same and having that relationship. And, along the way, as you've built this business, I'd love to know how you answer that question, from the standpoint of someone who, it may be a one and done for your clients, or they may grow and you may get a referral from it. Like how has that worked for you?
It's exactly the same as you describe. And I always say that I don't look at the project size, I look at the potential of the client relationship. So the question is not, is this project too small? The question is this a relationship worth investing? And I need to do some homework to learn if it is or not. One of the things that I learned some years ago that I really like to think about is when we are developing these relationships to hopefully eventually sell something. When in a buyer-seller relationship, usually the leverage is on the buyer because he's the one making the decision. The seller is just waiting to be selected. The buyer has the leverage because can decide to buy or not buy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, when you are in a disadvantage, you don't have the leverage, but you can flip the script and think about this, and this is how I see it. I'm buying money in the marketplace. So I'm buying money with my designs and my work and what I'm delivering. So I can buy $20,000 that are very expensive for me, or I can buy $20,000 that are very cheap for me because of what am I paying to get that money?
By what are you paying? You mean like the labor it takes?
Yeah, the relationship,
The time.
how difficult it's gonna be, how pleasant the relation is gonna be. Sometimes it's not, so it could be very expensive.
How do you, I guess, going forward, how do you manage that, or how do you, if you have a relationship that you don't feel like is pursuing, then how do you cut that cord?
Just terminating the relationship. Say sorry. I don't think. Usually, I say I'm sorry. I think we're not a good fit for you and to help you with this problem.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
It is. It's very much a kind of a dating relationship, right? Like you're trying things on. You're trying to see what works, what doesn't work, and yeah, it's very much a. If it doesn't work, don't force it.
Yeah, and it's the same as at the beginning when with business development people. Sometimes they have lunch with someone and they're already. So, can I help you? Do you have something that we can like? You want to kiss me on the first date? You're just having coffee. Like, wait, I may do it later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what advice will you give to someone entering our industry that they want to grow, they want to learn, maybe a young professional in a construction company?
Go in the field. First and foremost, spend time in the field, spend time on the job site. If you can appreciate that, then you'll learn the language of construction and stay in the field.
Yeah.
There we have in, well, I guess it would be in the United States. That's my only perspective, but certainly in the Southeast, for a while there's quite a few of our most intelligent, most capable, most ready to build superintendents that are reaching retirement age. And we had two of them last year. And these are guys that can build anything, can absolutely build anything. And for a while there, I was a little worried about, what the next generation of builder was going to be like. And I really don't feel that way as much anymore, because I've seen our the folks that we have, the younger folks that we have at superintendent role, are absolutely amazing. The role of a superintendent has changed substantially over the years. Back in the day, you were a hybrid. You were a foreman. You started out, running carpentry crew. You were a form carpenter. You were you kind of moved your way up through the ranks through time and learning opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, we find some of our best and brightest who are straight out of college in a construction engineering or maybe not even, who have come up through a different channel within the construction industry, and they are tech savvy. They act kind of as a hybrid role, and by that I mean they can schedule, they can of course fundamentally build buildings.
Yep.
They can. Being a superintendent is as much a lesson in psychology as it is in building buildings, because you are convincing another group of people that you have a path forward that will ultimately make them money,
Mm-hmm.
but also you're going to have that job site ready for them.
Yes.
And no matter what you do in this business, in the construction business in particular, we have to know how to build a building and how we're going to get that access to that job site, where we're going to stage things, where our deliveries are going to come in. A building has to eat and it has to expel waste.
Wow.
Those are the two keys.
Yeah.
You have to feed it and you have to get rid of the waste. And if you can do that efficiently on a job site, then everything else goes well. If you don't do that on a job site, then there is a propagation of delays, whether that trade partner can't get material on the project. Well, they're not going to be efficient. They're going to spend more time than they anticipated, and they're going to very quickly realize that they're not going to make the money that they were intending to make.
Yeah.
So it's our job as a general contractor to teach that. And ultimately, if somebody's young coming up in this business, they need to learn that as well, because it's an art, and it's as much psychology and forward thinking and having the ability to see that forest when the tree is directly in front of your face. You have to have that perspective, and it doesn't come from a book, and it doesn't come from, there's no class. And so for your son's, in your son's case, getting him out into that real world is the best advice. The second piece that I would give would be along the lines of The Go-Giver. Reading that book and understanding that the concept of don't help somebody out so that it benefits you, just help somebody out, and it probably will benefit you, but that's not the point. Mm-hmm. The point is, along the way, if you can provide value to somebody, eventually they will appreciate you. But that's really what I really enjoy about this business is being able to help somebody solve a problem and get their building done so that they can build their widget or sell their product or their service. And then hopefully they call us on the next one, but also hopefully they call me to go, grab lunch and learn about their family, or I see them walking down the street and we're high-fiving. That's, to me, is success. The finishing a project with a positive relationship is success, and that comes through giving. Yeah. So those would be my two pieces: spend time in the field and give of yourself as much as you can while still getting your job done.
Yeah, man, those are really good for any profession. Those are the basics of, we'll say, a professional career. Mm-hmm. And those things are intangible. Nobody can teach you those. You just learn by doing them.
Hard work too.
Yeah. Pay. I call it pay the price.
You've got to spend time in the trenches. One of the things that, I think has affected our industry, but probably all industries, is a desire to work around the time that it takes. I mean, you've been in architecture for how long?
20 years.
I've been in this business for 23, and it's a long time.
Yeah.
2 decades is a long time. You and I, we have probably similar paths forward, maybe 15, 20 more years in this business.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're kind of at that halfway point.
Yep.
Or maybe a little beyond that halfway point. And it's a long road. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of, for me, early morning concrete pours, but to me, that was like game time. That was the best time on a project, was when you're pouring concrete. And that's one of those things that, it takes a long time of putting your boots on every morning. And at the time, my wife would call it my bat belt, when I would put on my belt in the morning to go to work. And, it's a lot of sacrifice.
Yep.
And so don't discount the importance of hard work, because there is no shortcut.
Yes, that's right. There is no shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. We're at 1 hour. So my last question for you is, do you have a question for me?
I do. I've got a few questions for you.
All right.
My first one is, you mentioned a love of podcasts. What is your favorite podcast right now?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Huh. My favorite podcast right now, because I change. The more I listen, the more I open to other podcasts. But right now, I will say Diaries of a CEO, Steve Bartlett.
Okay.
You know that one?
No.
DOAC or DAAC or something like that. He's pretty famous. He's probably one of the top 5 podcasts worldwide. He's a British guy, young entrepreneur, and he interviewed people, but he gets really good guests, like worldwide good guests, really good ones.
What about that one do you appreciate?
The way he is, he's pretty like disarming, and since I think he's probably 28, 29 years old.
Okay.
And he really wants to learn from the person. Like you can see that he really wants to learn. He really wants to understand, and it's pretty simple and basic, but he's genuine, and people share everything.
Share everything.
Yeah, it's anything. It's incredible.
So he's a good listener.
Yeah, he's a good listener.
Well, so are you.
Yeah, I'm trying.
So, and then one more question: how often do you eat at Moosehead?
You know what? Not that often.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
Maybe
gosh!
every 3 months.
Best
Like I forget
lunch
it's up
in
there.
Charlotte.
I
Right
know.
there.
Somebody, I went with a friend the other day. He said they have the best chicken wings.
Oh
you
yeah.
can try, and I never tried them, and I did, and they are.
Never tried Moosehead's
No.
wings. Wow.
You know what? Actually, I'm gonna get some tonight.
Are you
and bring home
a flats guy or a drum guy?
drum?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, we couldn't eat wings together because I'm a drum guy too. Now my son is all flats, so when we get wings, like we're
wow.
perfect.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's really good.
And you got to go beasting at Moosehead.
Yes.
Those
That's right.
are the best.
Yeah.
So we'll shout out to Chris and the team up there at Moosehead. Thanks
That's
for
right.
keeping us all fed. It's a great lunch spot too. So good, quick,
Yes.
and great people watching always.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to staying in touch.
Same here, Jack. I'm honored to have this conversation with you. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this content. And find us online at thepowerofdesignpodcast.com. I invite you to join my mission to become a better version of yourself through the power of design.